What's up, moviegoers? Welcome to the Markio Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony. In this episode of the Markio Podcast, I'm talking about Halloween 2. Now, it stars Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasence. It's directed by Rick Rosenthal and produced by Debra Hill and John Carpenter. The release date was October 30th, 1981. Has a running time of 92 minutes. Had a budget of $2.5 million and grossed $25.5 million in the North American box office. Now, Halloween 2 is the second installment in the Halloween film series. Now, the plot picks up directly after the very first movie, maybe like 2 to 3 minutes after. Michael Myers now follows Laurie Strode to the local hospital, while Dr. Loomis is still trying to locate and find him. Now, even though John Carpenter and Debra Hill co-wrote the screenplay to the sequel, John Carpenter was very reluctant to extend his involvement and refused to direct this sequel, instead appointing the direction to Rick Rosenthal. Now, the movie Halloween 2 reproduces certain key elements that made the first movie a success, such as a first-person camera perspective, and the film picking up right at the end of a cliffhanger ending for the original movie, which, by John Carpenter and Debra Hill's account, was to finish the story of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, and that was it. So there wasn't supposed to be a sequel. Now, this movie also introduces the plot twist that Laurie Strode is Michael Myers' sister. We didn't know that he was the brother of Laurie Strode in the first one. We didn't get that idea, but later on we got that when part 2 came out. And then when you go back and watch part 1, then you realize it's brother and sister. Even though I did state in the Halloween Markio Podcast episode that they were brother and sister, and that I should have mentioned that it wasn't actually given to the audience that she was the sister of Michael Myers until the second movie. So basically it's just a sequel where Michael Myers goes around killing hospital patients and staff and people and just trying to get to Laurie Strode in the whole movie, and that's it. And Laurie Strode trying to survive her ordeal with her brother Michael Myers. The movie is different. The movie is interesting because it only takes place in one setting. You can tell that the filmmakers very much tried to make this a good sequel, but to me it didn't work at all. Some of the aspects of certain things didn't make any sense. I did like seeing Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasence back in the roles, and seeing them back in the roles close to 3 years later after the original movie is really saying something, especially when the main director John Carpenter doesn't come back, and can you imagine if John Carpenter did direct the sequel? I'm pretty sure it would have went a different route. Now, John Carpenter and Debra Hill, the writers of the first Halloween movie, were considering setting this sequel many years later and not right after the first movie. They planned to have Myers track Laurie Strode to her new home in the high-rise apartment building. However, the setting was later changed to Haddonfield Hospital in script meetings. Now, Tommy Lee Wallace, who served as the crew on the original film, stated that no one was all that excited over the prospect of a sequel. Now, the screenplay of Halloween 2 was written by John Carpenter and Debra Hill, and John Carpenter has described that writing this screenplay mainly dealt with a lot of beers and sitting in front of a typewriter saying, "What the fuck am I doing?" and basically saying, "I don't know." In a 1981 interview with Fangoria magazine, Debra Hill mentions the finished film differs somewhat from the initial drafts that John and I wrote. Upon receiving the script, the producer was disappointed as he felt it was pedestrian and predictable. The plot twist of Laurie being Michael's sister was never planned by Carpenter or Debra Hill, but was conceived according to John Carpenter, basically stating that purely as a function of having decided to become involved in the sequel to the movie, where I don't think there was really much of a story left to tell. John Carpenter would later refer to the plot as silly and foolish and a sort of, easy way out, that would go on to shape the narrative arc of the series in the next subsequent films. So like any horror movie back in the 70s and 80s, when it's a hit, there is always the movie studio and the producer who want to make a sequel, even if the original writers, directors, and producers don't want to. And I'm talking about John Carpenter and Debra Hill. I do commend John Carpenter and Debra Hill for writing this sequel and trying to, make it what it is and make it good. But you can tell that they didn't want to do this, and certain things were made in and cut out, and it just didn't feel like a Halloween movie at all. Should they have made a sequel to Halloween? No, they shouldn't have. It should have been done differently. And, even though Michael Myers was much more of a presence in the first film. He didn't feel threatening in this second movie at all. Feels like the mask was a little bit, worn away and didn't look right. And you can tell kind of a different actor was playing the role in a way. I wanted more. I wanted a lot more. But it was good to see Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasence reprise their roles from the first film as Laurie Strode and Dr. Sam Loomis, respectively. And I give credit to Rick Rosenthal for directing Halloween 2. And the interesting thing about Halloween 2 being directed by Rick Rosenthal is that he later came back and directed Halloween 8 Resurrection. So I don't know how that happened, but I'll definitely get into that in that podcast episode. So let me know in the comment section below what you think about Halloween 2. Do you think it stands up to the first movie? Do you think it's a good sequel? Do you think that this movie should have been made? And, do you commend Deborah Hill and John Carpenter for writing and producing this movie, even though they didn't want to? Because the movie studio and the producers saw that this movie was going to be a hit no matter what. Let me know in the comment section below about the questions I just asked. And be sure you tune into the next episode of the Markio Podcast where I talk about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. And be sure you click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell for new videos and new podcast episodes on the Markio Productions YouTube page. And follow Markio Productions on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And follow me, Anthony, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Filmstock. And follow the Markio Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll leave a link to all the social media accounts in the description box below. You can check it out and follow along. All right, everyone, that does it for today's episode. I'm your host, Anthony. Thanks for tuning in.
Why won't he die?
Get away from him! But he stopped breathing! No!